Hi, I'm Tom Stimson, and welcome to this video series on the transition from selling deliverables to selling outcomes. In the next several videos, we're going to teach you about the importance of selling outcomes for your customers and how the value that we can create for them is much higher than if we're just selling products. So products and services are your world, then get your notepad ready because we're going to learn some very important things that you can start using in your business today. So, welcome to the first video on the transition to selling outcomes. We're going to spend particular attention today on the concept of an outcome and how you can incorporate it into your sales pitch and your branding statements. Pay particular attention because every video after this one is very dependent on the concepts we're going to introduce today. What I want to talk to you about today is about the transition from selling deliverables to selling outcomes. Most of us grew up in the deliverable selling business. Selling deliverables are what we understand. A deliverable is something we can put a box around. We can define a scope of work. It's a very clear result. There's a very clear product or service that's involved. And it sells very differently to the selling that we need to do today and in the future. How many people have struggled over the years with trying to figure out how to sell service agreements through your integration firm? How many? Yeah. Have you figured it out yet? Okay, no. How about, so the next question is how well are you doing at selling managed services? Okay, you know that everybody who speaks to this industry has stood up here for the past 10 years and told you need to be selling service agreements and managed services, and we haven't figured out how to do it yet. What I want to talk to you today about is the things that we need to understand to sell those kinds of things. And I want to change the way that you think. I'm going to tell you the end result of all this is if you understand what I'm talking about and you start to embrace the methodologies that I'm going to speak to, you will no longer lead with integration. When you walk into a prospect's office, you're going to lead with service because service is the most valuable outcome that you can possibly sell. And you know it's valuable for you because it's the highest profit margin. We just can't get it for some reason. We can't make that sale. It's because we're using the wrong selling technique. So let's talk about what the right selling technique and how to use all of this. Now, first of all, thank you, Melody, for the great introduction. I am Tom Stimson. I've been in the audiovisual industry for a lot of years, more than 30 years. I am a past president of Infocom. I was on the board for 7 years. I worked in a live event company for 15 years. And for the past 9 years, I've been a management consultant primarily to the audiovisual industry. And I advise owners and management teams and organizations on how to improve process, come up with better strategies, and sometimes just how to live in their companies on a day-to-day basis so they can love their companies again. This is what I do. And if you're a dealer, you're 90% of what my business is. That's who I consult to. So I understand a lot about the problems and pains that you've been suffering. And when I teach, I try to incorporate the solutions that I think and often know are going to help you if you'll try them out. Which makes me infinitely qualified to talk about aspirin. How many people this is a fairly young crowd, how many people take an aspirin every day because their doctor told you to? Yeah, and you guys look like you probably need one. That's good for you. Why is the price of the low dosage aspirin that you take for daily use, why is that higher than the full dosage aspirin that people take for headaches? Anybody know? Because they can. Why can they? Because why? Well, they have to take it. Go one step further. Why do they have to take it? So, they stay. It's basically so they don't die, right? So we don't have that heart attack and keel over dead at our desks. Okay? That's a pretty dang valuable outcome. How valuable is curing a headache? Curing a headache is a lot less valuable than preventing a heart attack. So, yeah, they charge more because they can, because the problem they're solving is extremely important to you guys, right? It's important to me. Okay? That's the first lesson in selling outcomes. Understand what's valuable to the customer, because this often has nothing to do with what you think is valuable. And probably the biggest mistake that we make as dealers and resellers is that we think that what we do is important. We think that taking stuff out of a box, sticking in a rack, hooking it up and testing it is valuable. And that's not what's valuable to your customer at all. That's just something you have to do to get to the value that we may or may not have expressed to them. So, aspirin is all about the outcome. That low dosage aspirin. Next time you go to Walgreens or wherever you go to the pharmacy, look at the difference in prices on those and remember outcomes. Put some in your bag. Don't forget to take it. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the language of outcomes, because when we start talking about outcomes, we use a different language. We have to convert our ideas of what value is and why something's important to something that's valuable to the customer. We're going to talk about getting in front of an RFP. The problem with selling outcomes is that once you get an RFP, the outcomes are already defined and you're too late. Okay? And there's been a huge transition in our industry, pre-recession and post-recession. How many of you design build integrators? Pre-recession design build integrators, if I asked you how much of your business was design build, what would you have told me? 90%, all of it? Okay. Can you give me the same answer now, or is it something a little bit lower? Are you going to fib a little bit and say about half? And in fact, it's even less than that. Okay, so we've really transitioned to an RFP world, and the reason is we forgot to change what it is that we're selling. So we're talking about getting in front of the RFP. We're going to talk about the importance of marketing and branding. Is anybody here in marketing? Good. You guys are going to love me when I'm done, because I am job security for you right now. We're going to talk about leading with services. It amazes me, it fascinates me that something that's valuable and obvious as service agreements don't sell well. Now, I understand why I don't buy a service agreement when I'm in the checkout line at Best Buy. I don't want to pay $39 to put a service contract on something that I'm going to throw away if it breaks. But nobody's throwing away what you're doing. You're installing rooms that are supposed to last 5 to 10 years. Why are we having so much trouble selling service agreements? And then I'm going to give you a couple of lists about some things that you really need. I want to give you some takeaways. I want to give you some things that you can think about and apply when you get out of here. So if you get 10% of this, it's going to be in the list, right? So hang around for the list, because that's where the good stuff is. So, welcome to value-based selling. I'm your host. Have you ever wondered why you can't sell service agreements? Why customers focus on price? Why does every discussion devolve into a price discussion? Do you understand that when you're having a price discussion with your customer, how many things that you have failed to do up to that point? A price discussion and a price negotiation is an indication of some failures along the way. Do you know what those failures are? How many salespeople feel that their job is to partner with their customers? And I know that Almo is very good. Almo talks about partnering with its partners. But partnering, why won't clients partner with you? Why won't clients call you first when they have a need? Why won't they make that engagement for you? Why do so few of your clients actually do that? And the reason is that transactional relationships trump value relationships. And if you've established a transactional relationship with your clients, that's always going to be your relationship until you can replace it with a value relationship. And once you have a value relationship, you don't need to go back to the transactional relationship. You can, in your organization, have two lines of relationships. You can have the transactional group, and you can have the value group. You have two different value propositions. Heck, you probably have 10 different value propositions. Each one of them might require a different way of selling. And our mistake is that we often apply the same tool to all sales. We take the salesperson and we aim them over here and say, here's a transactional sale, and let's sell some boxes, let's sell some installs, let's sell some service agreements. We're using the same tool. Now, we can take that same person and give them 3 or 4 different techniques. And maybe that's where we need to go, or maybe we need to have specialists in each kind of selling. Now, what are outcomes? I'm going to talk about selling outcomes. What are outcomes? Outcomes are projects or services where the end result is more important than the plan. How many of you are designers? You design a plan. You take it very personally when we don't execute your plan, right? You might even have a hissy fit from time to time because we didn't follow the plan. Well, you know what? Your clients don't care about the plan. Okay? What they really care about is the outcome. So the outcome is why the plan exists.
You sell the end result so that you can execute a plan. You make a plan so that you can change it because the outcome is going to continually evolve. Okay? What are the outcomes that your customers need? And really, when we're talking about when they ask for a boardroom install or they ask for a classroom on their college campus, what is it they're really asking for? What's the problem they're really trying to solve? Well, it may be the wrong problem. It may be the problem they're trying to solve is that the old stuff doesn't work anymore. I want some new stuff that doesn't work. Okay? But are we asking the right questions to understand what we're trying to solve? Is the problem, and I'll use education as an example here, is the problem we're trying to solve is we can't get students to come into classrooms anymore because they would rather sit at home and learn online? How do we make the classrooms work? Is the issue that our professors will not use the technology in the classrooms because they don't understand it, because it's not as intuitive as you think it is? Okay? What's the outcome? If the outcome is, I want people to use the silly thing, and I don't want professors working off script, and I don't want professors using a chalkboard when I want them to use an electronic whiteboard, how can we accomplish that? Okay? That's different than selling a bunch of products and integrating and installing them. It's solving a problem that's much more valuable to the customer than the sum of the parts that you're selling. So there's two types of selling that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about push selling and I'm going to talk about pull selling, obviously. Push selling is additive. Push selling is what most of us do. It's what most of us understand, and we're very familiar with push selling. Push selling is taking product and adding margin and some value add. That's what we do, right? We take product, we put margin on it, we throw in some value add. Margin is defined as the maximum to which the customer is indifferent. If the customer cares about the margin, then we haven't done our job. And if the customer is caring about margins that are so small you can't make a living, then we need to try something else. So margin is the amount to which the customer is indifferent. Value add is something that's worth paying more for. So many of us think we have a fantastic value add. So we drop the margin as low as we can on product, and we have the value add that we're going to design it for you for free. We're going to project manage it for free. We're going to test it for free. We're going to train it for free, and we're throwing in all these value add features so that you will buy some low margin boxes for us that we integrate. And that's the basic integration model. That's the push selling model. We add things to it and try to make money off of that. Okay? Marketing for push selling is the art of selling value add first. So good marketing in a push environment says, your value add is valuable. That's the marketing message. Our value add is more valuable than their value add. And how many of us are actually good at this? Because what's the value add most marketing departments are selling in our industry? You look at your competitor's website. We have the best people, the best lines, and we do the best work. We have the highest quality. That's our value add. Our value add is our salespeople are less annoying than other people's salespeople. Okay? That's the value add. Okay? That's going to get you a push sale. Okay? That's not going to get you a pull sale. When we talk about what a good push model, the best push model out there right now, these people are brilliant, is Amazon. Amazon Prime is the ultimate push model. Their value add is the entire value proposition of Prime. I pay, and I love it, I pay $100 a year for the privilege of ordering something that's going to cost me 10% more just so I don't have to pay for shipping. And it's not paying for shipping that matters. If I was a transactional person, if they were treating me on a transactional basis, they would tell me how much I saved on shipping, but they don't tell me that because they don't want me focusing on the amount I saved for shipping. What they save me is the convenience of not caring what the shipping is going to cost. They're taking away a decision factor that keeps people from ordering stuff on Amazon. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. They identified my real pain, and the reason I didn't shop on Amazon, because I could find inexpensive products, I can get them shipped from anywhere, and then I find out to get them shipped to me is going to cost half of what the product cost. And so I wait until I have 4 or 5 things so I could hit what used to be the $65 threshold. Remember that? If you ordered $65, then the shipping was free. But you got to order a lot of little snack bars to get to $65, because that's the kind of stuff I order on Amazon. Okay? So they figured it out. They have mastered the art of push selling. When other people start doing what they're doing, then they're going to have to come up with another way and another pain that they're going to have to solve for me to get me to remain being a customer. So as long as most of us have been in the business of selling transactions, we're still not very good at push selling. So we're not even doing the things that we need to do to be more valuable on a simple transaction like this. Now, pull selling is attractive. If push selling is additive, pull selling is attractive. The value pull is defined by the buyer. I'm the buyer. I define what's important to me. Amazon responds to it. So in some ways, they're also doing some pull selling. The value is defined by the customer. It starts with understanding the client's condition. This is your job. You need to know what's going on in your customers. You need to understand their drivers. You need to understand their needs and not their requests, because their requests are going to be wrong. And the important thing in selling outcomes is you don't sell people what they ask for, you sell people what they need. In order to do that, you have to have a relationship and the credibility to pull it off. Remember that transactions are secondary to outcomes. So if you're leading with pulling, we can negate most of the transactional discussion. And value pull has to fulfill an intellectual need. We're talking at a higher level when we're selling with pull. So you have to create the pull within each customer, but pull is defined by the customer, and every customer is going to define it just a little bit differently. So, now, increased use of technology in classroom, and this is huge. I've got some good friends that are in the design consulting world that sell in secondary education, and I love listening to the guys talk about this. My parents were both educators. I'm surprisingly well educated for an AV guy. I went to college a lot. And I think the classrooms are really, really neat. And I'm amazed at what's going on in there, because the expectation is in that 10 or 15 years from now, my daughters who just finished college and cost me a freaking fortune, their college is actually going to be free and they could do it remotely and get basically the same experience. And they're building smaller classrooms, not bigger classrooms. So big universities are building smaller and smaller classrooms because they expect more and more of the attendance to be remote or captured for later. This was a big debate when I was in grad school 10, 12 years ago, because professors who live for tenure, you guys want to understand what tenure is, basically tenure is you're guaranteed a job for life, which gives you the freedom to quit worrying about job reviews, and you just work on research and you teach a little bit and they leave you alone. That's the deal. It's a social contract with professors. Great deal. It's not going to work in our electronic future. What started happening 10 years ago is they're bringing in hired guns. They're bringing in CEOs of major corporations who know a lot of stuff, paying them an exorbitant amount of money to teach for 1 year, capturing all of it on video and then repurposing it. The professors who taught me in grad school were teaching the same thing they'd taught for 10 or 15 years. Some of them were using the exact same content. Why are we paying them every year to do that? That's the changes that's going on in the education world. Okay? So it changes the way that we sell into education. So we need to talk about competitive advantage. Okay, so if we understand what push and pull is, we understand what the competitive advantage that we're trying to do. So competing for transactions is a marketing play. The challenge is to drive push. Sales is an extension of marketing in the transactional environment. Marketing has to soften the beach. Sales comes in and closes the deal. Marketing, sales, marketing, sales. If you're really sophisticated, it's marketing leads sales. Otherwise, it's just marketing, sales, marketing, sales. Selling services is an outcome-based solution that works best with pull techniques. Marketing has to support sales. And more importantly, marketing supports business development, which supports sales. It's a different approach to selling. We have a slightly different path because we want to bypass that transactional agreement and we want to get in front of the RFP. Get in front of the RFP. And the goal is to share undisputable value. So here's our standard transaction. We got the cost of parts and labor. We got the cost of value-added services. We got the margin, which becomes what you negotiate on. So our negotiable point in this transaction is margin. The customer is generally indifferent to how you got to the margin, but they're not indifferent about the margin until you get it to a point where they go, okay. And that's why a lot of selling techniques are, how do we get the customer to go, okay, that's not too bad. I can live with that. Yeah, you're 1% higher than the other guys. I can live with that because of your value add. Okay? Not a very powerful result from a business standpoint. Pull selling is attractive, and pull selling works differently. What we're negotiating is the customer's actual need. And if we can understand what their need is, we can design an outcome and connect it to a return on investment. There is an actual return on investment on everything our customers do. We've been talking about it for years, but we're not applying it in our business because ROI doesn't work in transactional sales. We don't negotiate ROI in transactional sales. We negotiate margin. What's the ROI of a boardroom that works? That's the problem. Crickets. We don't know because we haven't identified why does the customer actually need a boardroom that works and what's the fantastic outcomes that go with it. We can't put a price on it because we don't know what it is that matters to them. We just want all the little shiny parts to work and all the lights to come on in the right order. And we fulfilled our scope of work and we trained you and we showed you 5 times which button to push. Okay? And we think we've accomplished something. That's not as valuable to the client as it could be as if we actually solved a problem. And very often, when we solve the right problem, we actually fulfill the real need, we end up with a much less complicated installation. If we can solve somebody's problem and they spend less money and have a simpler solution, that is more valuable and you will have more share of value in that transaction. So we'll talk a little bit more about how this all works. Let's talk a little bit about the transition to selling outcomes and how do we get ahead of these transactional engagements. So getting in front of the RFP is huge in all of this. The reason we are more and more rooted in transactional selling is because we're all responding to RFPs now. I'm dealing with sales teams, I'm helping reorganize sales teams and creating lead generation systems. And I have salespeople, veteran salespeople who consider themselves the rainmaker who will not call back on a lead unless there's an RFP attached to it. They don't understand that a lead without an RFP is worth more than a lead with an RFP. We've got to change this mindset. So the difference between business development and sales and customer service is very important in this model. If responding to RFPs is a salesperson's job, then don't send a salesperson on a lead without an RFP. That's what the role of business development is. And this is going to be a semantics discussion. The fact of the matter is business development doesn't actually sell anything. Business development is the one that helps identify the needs and the outcomes that are going to make the customer ecstatic and brings that opportunity back to the mothership so that we can deliver the appropriate value-based response where we have a large share of the value but they get all of the success that they've been looking for. Getting in front of the RFP, business development is an extension or personification, if you will, because some of them feel like they're deities, of marketing and branding. Marketing and branding is the concept, business development is the individual. And sales is the representative of delivery in this system. So in the push selling, if we're going to get in front of the RFP, there's no real role for sales until we have something to sell and deliver. This is about developing the conceptual relationship that's going to be valuable. This is how you get customers for life, is that you have to solve very expensive problems for them. Solve very valuable problems is what I like to say. RFPs, and if you take nothing else away today, take this away. RFP is formed after all the value is engineered from the project. RFPs are not your friend. RFPs are the enemy. The value is already gone. The question is, how little value are you willing to negotiate for to get the piece of work? You can't sell outcomes if all you see is the RFP. There's no outcomes left in an RFP. They've all been defined. And they've been defined, unfortunately, incorrectly. And the reason I'm so down on RFPs is because the process of getting to an RFP, even though the people who are getting us there, my friends, the design consultants, who are my drinking buddies because they buy much better wine than you guys do, okay, they're not getting to the heart of the problem either. Okay? You complain about channel disruption? Let me tell you, you have an opportunity for channel disruption. Okay? No one's meeting the full needs of our customers out there. Here's the ideal process. The customer decides they want something, they go through this ideation process, they define their needs, they put together a budget, and then a plan is built. So they form the ideas internally, design comes in, perhaps that's you, perhaps it's somebody else. Contractors put the budget together and subcontractors execute the plan. That's the ideal world. And your expectation and your marketing plan and your website says they should call you first. As soon as they want something, they say they should call you, and that would be the ideal process. And that is exactly what we're trying to get. That's what we want to have. We're right. Why is it not working? Okay? Because that's not what happens. What really happens is the user has wants, they have needs, they have budget, and it gets taken over by stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? Well, they're the people who control the money. Okay? And stakeholders go, well, we need to get some fences around this as quickly as possible before these guys run amok with our money. So we're going to bring in some experts to do the design. That'll control things because that's the value proposition the experts are selling. How do we keep things under control? How do we make sure that you get the maximum return for your money? And then there's the value engineering process because we always want more than we have money for, right? And then we start balancing one dealer or one integrator against another, and we do that whole margin dance thing because now we're dealing with a transaction, and then an RFP gets generated, and all the value's gone. And now it's that race to the bottom to see who can come up with the lowest price with the right value add or the least amount of value suck. Because sometimes the guys whose value sucks less than yours gets the job, and sometimes people get the job because their value sucks, but that's okay because they cost less. Okay? I don't feel good about that. You guys have CTSs, CTSIs, CTSDs, you're industry veterans, you're professionals, you do very high quality work, and that's the terms that you're dealing on. We've got to get in front of the RFP.